great. Interesting poll, my other favourite subject, which is actually diversity. So I feel like we need to do another session on diversity because it's my favourite topic. So hello everyone, welcome to today's session. So we're actually going to talk about recruitment tech and how to cut through the noise. And thank you, JP, from Lucas for joining me on this session. Just a quick introduction on who I am. I'm Sarah Callery. I'm Director of Sales and Strategy at iCIMS. I've been in the recruitment industry for far too long, something like 24 years, so it really shows my age. I started as a recruiter. I worked internally, so I've sat your side of the table. And then around about 15 years ago, I moved into the tech space. And I've been working with organisations on kind of how they've gone to market looking for new technology. JP, over to you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm JP Jones, or John Paul Jones, head up the talent acquisition function here for Lookers. I've been with Lookers since August last year. Responsibilities are to look after the whole talent attraction, recruitment, retention, social media, EVP, and now the apprenticeship programme and early careers agenda for the group. I've been within the industry best part of 15 years, started out in agency, worked my way through, mainly within life science and pharmaceuticals, medical devices to start with, before I moved into internal recruitment, where I've worked at the likes of mainly within food manufacturing, Two Sisters Food Group, Arla Foods, where I headed up the function, heavy utilities and utilities as well. So yeah, so that's me.
Quite a big role you've got at the moment.
A little bit, yeah, it is.
Again, appreciate you doing today because I know you're obviously currently implementing iCIMS, so you're a little bit busy. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, not a problem. No problem.
So just a brief overview of iCIMS. We are a talent cloud. So we are a TA talent cloud. We are modular based. We have over 6,000 customers globally, 9 offices in US, Europe, and Asia. And 37 language capabilities. You can just see some of the customers that we work with. We have a lot of users on our platform, so we have 2.7 million plus actual users of our platform. Just a bit of an overview of who we are. So why are we here today? So as I mentioned, I've been working in the TA space on the technology side for around about 15 years. And when I first started as a recruiter, and this does make me feel really old, technology wasn't a thing. Excuse me. There was a job board I think I used to use, and there was one office when I was an agency recruiter who had dial-up to access the internet. So it's changed a lot to where we are today. And just to give you an idea of what that noise looks like, if you look at all the TA vendors out there globally of technology, there's over 1,700. So that's a lot of vendors out there telling you that they can fix your problems. There is also over 5,000 just within HR. Again, a lot of people telling you these are going to change your life and actually make your job a lot easier. To add on to that, the growth is fast. A lot of vendors really struggle, like the old legacy platforms, really struggle to keep up with technology as these newer vendors come in. The year-on-year growth is actually 13%. So you can see all these tech houses, more and more noise, and it's really, really difficult for people within TA to kind of cut through the noise to ensure that actually you get the right vendor. This is a scary stat, and I think I scared JP earlier. 73% of tech buyers actually are already regretting their decision, okay? This is actually sometimes even before they've actually gone live with the new system, and this is according to Gartner last year. And ultimately, what they're feeling is that the offering that they purchased is failing or failed to meet their expectations. And a lot of the time, this is because they didn't go through that buy-in process at the start. They didn't have the right criteria to what they were looking for. They got like sidetracked by shiny tech. Well, they might get sidetracked internally. It might be by IT, etc., to kind of move that agenda to what ultimately TA wanted to do to actually achieve their goals. So buy-in technology is a huge thing for everyone. But also, I think this is the big thing for me, it's a massive commitment. Typically, a contract is 3 to 5 years. So once you're in there, you're not going to want to change it. There is cost to implementation. And there's the pain of implementation and the change management that comes with it. So you've got to think about, actually, we need to ensure we've gone through the right buy-in cycle to implement the right solution for us. That's not just right for today, that's actually going to see you right in 5 and maybe 10 years time, because you're not going to want to keep changing technology. Right, a little bit about Lookers. So JP, over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about Lookers and your TA function at the moment?
Yeah, no problem. Spot on. So thank you for that. So yeah, Lookers, major car retailer across 150 locations in the UK and Ireland. I have to be honest, before I joined Lookers, I'd never really heard of them, to be honest. I'd heard of the likes of the JCT 600s and Arnold Clarks. So bit of a kind of a sleeping giant, in all honesty, but one of your major top 5 car retailers. So like I say, 150 dealerships. We've got a 110-year plus history, and roughly about 4 billion turnover, 6,500 staff across our 150 sites. And we represent, I think it's 37 major car manufacturers now as it stands. So anything from the likes of your ultra premium Ferraris, Bentleys, Aston Martins, to your kind of volume car brands such as like Vauxhall, your Renaults, your Fords. So in excess, we sell roughly about 175,000 new and used cars per year. So as a business, we're massive. So we've got a major site out there in Belfast called Charleshurst, and it's the biggest car retailer franchise kind of dealership group location in Europe. So it's a massive company, big PLC. So in terms of the recruitment function, so the one that I kind of inherited to where we are now. So when I first joined the business, we were basically a team of 6. It's a very, very flat structure, team of talent sources. And it was pretty much a post and pray culture. So a lot of the recruiters that we had in the team at the start of my journey back in August, pretty much had come through the HR route. There's a couple of people that come from agency, but the majority have come from the HR route and kind of fell into the internal talent recruitment space. So the process that we had at that time was 100% post and pray, put an advert out. If you didn't get enough applications, 2 weeks time, straight to agency. So I can't disclose obviously the agency spend, but I can confirm that it's a considerable amount. Time to fill for us at that, as it stands, when I first joined, was around that 79 days, so quite high. Again, no process, and we currently have 245. I mean, that's coming down now, obviously, since I've joined, but we had 245 agencies on our PSL. I say PSL in the loosest terms, but yeah, about 245 agencies that we're using, all at different locations across our 150 dealer groups, and they all have their own kind of relationships with them agencies. Hotspots all over the area, all over the business, should I say, mainly technicians. So we had 137 technician vacancies when I first started, and like what it was like when I was with Arla, technicians are very much like the engineers. There's not a lot of people going into the industry. It's not seen as the kind of the trendy upcoming industry. So we're not seeing a lot of school leavers going into that space. They're in hot demand. Very, very competitive market is the technician space. So 137 when I first started, and then other hotspot areas were IT. As standard, IT is always a difficult area within head office, and body shop as well. So our kind of cosmetic repairs, vehicles, alloy wheel repairs, cosmetic surgeons that we have across the group. And I think the biggest problem that we had, or the 2 biggest problems, should I say, very, very low morale in the team. Massive problem in terms of applications. So applications last year was about a quarter of the applications that we saw compared to 2021. So I think we're roughly about 12,500 applications that we had last year compared to the previous year, which was about 39,000 roughly. So lower applications, no process, no probably technical ability or skills to kind of go out and hit the market and source. So basically it's basically an agency's dream. And I think the biggest thing as well, hiring managers for us at that point when I first joined, there was no credibility in the function. Often bypass the actual process that we had, and the system just to go direct with agency, and the team would kind of pick it up afterwards and do the onboarding. So really low credibility. So where we are now, from a team perspective, I've built the team up to a team of 12. We've introduced 4 layers. We've got 4 talent sources, ultimately just responsible for sourcing candidates, talent pooling, apprenticeships, early careers. We've then got 6 talent partners that head up all the different kind of franchises and the franchise directors. We've then got a lady who project manages, like a recruitment project manager, that basically looks after our kind of social media campaigns, EVP. And then just recently newly appointed a talent manager as well, just to kind of manage the BAU, the day-to-day, the vacancies, the numbers, that will manage the team and obviously push growth and push development with the team. 3 levels. We introduced bonus, KPIs, and set some expectations. So we've fully moved away now as well from the post and pray culture to one of a more of proactive sourcing culture. The hotspot areas that we've had are now kind of getting to very much under control. We've gone from 137 technician vacancies down to 56, with probably a view that we'll get that down to like for like, one in, one out recruitment probably in the next couple of months. So in a really good space, and comparing that to other competitors in the market, we are ahead of the curve with that. So real positive. Body Shop, majority of them are now out to offer an interview. And IT as well, we're kind of moving away from agency with a lady that I've got in head office that's heading up the IT recruitment space, making some real kind of inroads in terms of talent pooling, should I say, and finding some great candidates. We've rolled out a new process that covers all our bands. So we have band A through to band D. So band D is semi-skilled, unskilled, non-manager. C is like kind of your line manager, B is senior manager, and A is kind of like that exco kind of executive level. So we've got a newly formed process across the whole function. We've introduced competency-based framework and questions to make sure that our kind of recruitment process is inclusive and fair and open and transparent as we possibly can be. So we've got that as well. We've branded the TA function to raise the credibility. We've reduced agency spend considerably, and just in general, like I say, raise the credibility, raise the function, raise the awareness. And now, rather than going out to agency, they're kind of coming to us now. So we're in a pretty good place, I'd say. So that's kind of where we are.
You've been pretty busy since you've only been there since August.
Very busy, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned process, because we see it quite a lot when organisations think about the process afterwards and not before they look at the technology that they buy. I think so. That's my first takeaway to everyone, is actually make sure technology will only work as you've got the right people in place and the right processes in place. So I'm going to, JP, you've done it right, clearly, because you've got the people, you've got the structure there, you've put the processes in, and now you've obviously gone out to look at the right technology. So they're the kind of, I suppose, the key takeaway for me on that. My laptop is now playing up. So just on kind of the next, why is it not working? What does your current tech stack look like? Obviously, you're implementing iCIMS at the moment, but when you walked in last August, what did it look like for you?
Yeah, no problem. So our current tech stack that we've got at the minute is a system called Recruit that's through a bigger business called Cornerstone. There might be some people on this call that adds the user system, and that's basically that's just full ATS. Then from our kind of advertising and attraction side of things, we use Broadbean, like majority of internal functions do in agencies as well. And then from an onboarding, for all onboarding activity, then New Recruit basically links into Zealous. So, I mean, our current ATS system, it piles on a massive amount of pressure and admin time on the team. So, if we're talking, the recruiters are kind of doing 30 to 60 vacancies at any given time, they really are struggling, or they have been struggling with the kind of the volumes. And actually the system I found from our perspective is really kind of contributed to that. So system's extremely kind of, it's kind of clunky. It doesn't encourage kind of going out to source, because actually what we find is one of the kind of requirements that we're looking for is to reduce that admin time. So, you know, I'm sure that you all hear it on this call that recruiters are always saying that they've got too much admin and booking in interviews and all the rest of it, and they haven't got time to do any sourcing. When you've got 1360 vacancies, I wouldn't say we're a volume recruiter per se, but, you know, if you've got a system that's, you know, quite laborious, it's not intuitive, it doesn't do your calendar invites, it doesn't do your texting, it doesn't do syncing out with kind of your third-party job boards, you tend to find that, you know, the majority of the time that to spend it is, you know, kind of doing a bit of a time and motion with the guys. It takes time. So actually what we're finding is it keeps them in that very reactive state. It doesn't allow them to kind of get their head above water, go out to the market and actually do some proactive sourcing. And actually right now where we are in the market, where there's roughly 1.4 million vacancies probably sitting on Indeed as we speak, you know, how do we stand out? You know, we don't stand out. We can have the best advert out there, you know, we don't stand out. So for us, it's we have to be proactive. We have to move more to kind of an agency model. So, and also the you know, the reporting functionality as well. So when I'm, you know, trying to make kind of data-led decisions and kind of build business cases to the you know, to the board to kind of say, this is where we're going, this is the situation that we're in, and, you know, I need extra heads, I need this, I need that. The system doesn't do that. It doesn't allow, you know, it doesn't allow customization to tell the story how we need to tell the story, basically, to make them decisions. So it's been extremely difficult. So, and again, crashing, just usual system issues that we've seen, as system breaking down quite regularly, and quite clunky. And I think the biggest one that we've found as well is, after spending quite a considerable amount of time with Indeed, is the one-click apply function, you know, the increasing of about 60% applications. So listening to what I've kind of already saying about, you know, we've seen about a quarter of the applications last year compared to the previous year. It's imperative that, you know, we do get the application numbers coming through. So we need to make it as easy as possible. So the one-click apply functionality that iCIMS offers, or other providers, like I say, offer, it for me is a big one. So with having that, you know, full mobile optimization, ease of use, that's imperative. And actually the system that we've currently got and currently been using hasn't given us that, unfortunately.
Great. What did you, in terms of when you were looking at new vendors, how did you, oh, actually, sorry, we've got a poll. I was launching back in there. So, yeah, how many vendors are you using at the moment?
I'll leave it on for 30 seconds or so. I'd hopefully should be a quick response.
There's probably people like counting on their fingers now, because it always, one of the things that we've done some stats on this, and organisations really touch about 20 different systems in a day. So it could be going from LinkedIn to a job board to Excel, etc. That's not tech vendors, but that's how much touch points there actually are for recruiters, which is huge. So yeah, I imagine people are counting on their fingers now the different amount of technology partners they're using.
There should also be a response to say, unsure. And we've actually just had a question come through from Katie. What do you mean by vendors? We have one ATS, but we also post our roles externally on different job boards. Should we include those?
Not job boards. I would class them as one vendor if you're job boards, but it would be things like assessment providers, video interviewing, different things like that, different kind of tools that you may or may not use in your recruitment process.
Okay.
Like CRM, for instance.
Sure.
Or you might not use a
CRM. Perfect. Right. Let me share the results with you here.
2 to 5. Okay. How many have you got, JP?
How many have we got? I think, sorry, about 3, I'd say. Yeah. About 3. Yeah, I'd say that.
Great. I don't know what's going on with my laptop today. For some reason, my mouse doesn't want to work. Excuse me. So I think one of the big things is what we see is like, how do you actually build out what you're looking for. So how did you build out your requirements, JP? Because there is 5 different things that, I mean, every organization should be looking for when they go to market. You know, there's the functional requirements that you as a TA function need. There'll be technical requirements that will be very much based on what your IT department need or think they need. Obviously, support and services, customer industry, peer references. I know you were a user of iCIMS previously, and obviously potential pricing and commercial terms. How did you build that out for yourself? You know, you've joined Lookers, you've inherited a team that isn't performing the way that the business needs it to perform, and you've got a technology that's actually not working based on what the business requirements are. How did you build out those requirements for you and for your technology purchase?
Yeah, no problem. That's a good question. So I mean, the first thing that I did when kind of looking at, you know, building out requirements for a new system is obviously new to the business. There's a lot of noise, you know, everybody's kind of platform, everybody's kind of functional areas burning down. So I didn't want to kind of put my flag in the sand to start with. I wanted to kind of get out to sites, get out with hiring managers, get out to kind of understand the challenges, good and bad, that they were facing with the function and actually with the market. Because you know, hiring managers, you know, their time's best spent being the hiring manager and the role that they kind of set out to do, not to be a recruiter. And you know, so for me, looking at the process and you know, people and process is two things, but for me the process was the king, you know. So totally started outside of the system, no system in mind, in all honesty, and looked at the current process and the lack of one, looked at hotspot areas, cost and agency spend, and what's driving our managers basically to go out to agency, and cutting out the team in, you know, some instances. So looked at all the key metrics such as, like I said, time to fill, candidates who aren't being processed and spoken. We had over, I think at the time when it first started, we had over 1,000 candidates that had kind of been sitting past the age of 75 days with no kind of feedback. I mean, you know, no feedback, not knowing where they're going, you know, in such candidate-led market, it's kind of criminal actually, you know. So we haven't got this abundance of candidates in the first place. We need to be treating every candidate like you know, like royalty in theory, like, and I've kind of tried to drill that into the business. You know, we're a car business, we treat as customers fantastically, so you know, why aren't we treating as candidates the same? So that was kind of the first thing. But the big one for me, on top of the process, is kind of the key driver, was reducing admin time. I want to reduce the admin time by about 60%, allowing the team to move into this reactive model. So for me, the key areas where I see as a team from a recruitment perspective, we have the real value is between advertising, so taking that really solid brief, understanding what the hiring manager wants, and taking that brief all the way through to first interview. So actually, if candidates are going to first, I'm teaching people to suck eggs on this call, so they know exactly what I'm on about. But for, you know, first interview, you'd like to think anybody going into first interview and moving into second interview are the right people. And if we've taken the right brief, found the right caliber candidates, obviously you're going to have dropouts, you're going to have, you know, counter offers, the rest of it, understand that. But if we get to that first interview, we're kind of there or thereabouts. And kind of, I wanted to look at the data that came from the first interview back to advertising again. And I wanted to kind of get the team to the point where they're just focused on that space. That is where we earn our money from a recruitment perspective. So I basically had to start and build a robust process, one that will fit for purpose, you know. So I went to Cornerstone. Once I built the kind of the process and kind of rolled it out, did a little bit of sense checking with all the FDs, the board, did a lot of kind of workshops with sites, with hiring managers, all the way from kind of your entry level manager all the way through to like I say, senior VP, senior directors within the organisation, just to see if it would work, see if they're happy with it. We trialed it and tested it on a couple of Band B vacancies just to see how it would work. And basically, once we'd done that, I went back to Cornerstone, our current ATS provider, to give them every opportunity to basically look at the new process that we created, to just basically see whether or not the functionality in the system could match that of the new process and the way that we needed to go out. So we couldn't get to a point where we could create that customization and that functionality in the system. So that was the kind of the main obstacle. I overcame that. It's kind of like, right, okay, I now know I need a new system that would support the process. Like I said, shave about 60% of the admin time, support our EVP and advert content, spot one, click apply, integrate with third-party job boards as well, which ultimately means as well that we can kind of not carry the relationship forward with Broadbean. Again, that's a cost saving, but actually it's good to get that full in-house MI suite and data, because we're very much a data-led, data-driven business. I needed a system that would basically provide that from the seat that I sit in to make them commercial, return on investment decisions. I needed a really good system that could provide that sort of MI. So yeah, that's kind of it. It's all down to process fundamentally. It's just build a process. Didn't want to get sucked into kind of looking at all really nice fancy systems with little gadgets and gimmicks and things like that that really probably would have little to no value. I wanted to start with a process and make sure that the system that we chose basically replicate everything that we wanted to create. So
yeah, absolutely, I completely agree. It's back to people, processes, and then the technology into it. So how did you build that business case? I mean, I think we would all, I'm sure there's a lot of people on this call, they need more money. They need to go to the board and say, hey, like, we need more money because we want to do X, Y, and Z. There's the whole conversation about, TA having a seat at the table, and ultimately how much recruitment impacts an organisation. So how did you go about building that business case? Bearing in mind you are new to an organisation, so you might not have all of that credibility at the moment. It's not like you've been there for 4 years and you've actually already delivered massive projects for them before. So how did you go about building that business case?
Yeah, good question. So to be fair, after that first kind of month with the business, I had a lot of time on the road, like I said. Spent a lot of time with the business, becoming the eyes and ears. Didn't, like I say, want to put my flag in the sand. I wanted to kind of understand the challenges and get a real good idea, cut through the noise, and actually find the real story, the real line that was there, basically. And then I pretty much went back to we have 2 tiers. We have a thing called OpsCo, so Operations Committee, which is basically all the franchise director heads, so the heads of all the dealer groups, and then we have the ExCo, which is the board level. So we all came together with both groups and kind of a bit of shock and awe statement, in all honesty. They knew it was broken. They knew the function was broken. That they were having a real challenge in terms of just getting people through the door in general, like everybody else. It wasn't the worst that I've kind of seen, in all honesty, but I think if we carried on in the vein that we were going, would have really struggled to kind of find the right caliber of candidates and fill the vacancies, and that is obviously key for us. So the first thing was to, like I say, go back to board to kind of just show exactly where we are, the current situation, the state of play, and that's the kind of good base level, good with data. And actually, if we continue on this trajectory, we're actually, this is where we're going to end this year. Going into next year, this is where we're going to be as well. So we need to make changes, and actually make some fundamental changes and quick. So the first thing I did is set about building a business case that is as is and to be. So obviously went out to all the suppliers. We invited multiple suppliers in, obviously iCIMS being one of them. A lot of suppliers that I've already used before, some that I've never used or even heard of, but obviously looking at the functionality and the things that it did, mirroring what the process was going to be, and basically invited them in. So the first things that I kind of did as well, once inviting them suppliers in, is linking with procurement. You can't do it on your own, in all honesty. It's a mammoth task, and actually, to kind of get rid of any kind of biases and to keep you on track in terms of what you're looking for. If you've got anybody within your kind of business that's kind of can project manage, or somebody within procurement or legal department that can kind of set out the as is to be, to make sure that actually what you're getting is actually what you set out at the beginning. Because actually, I buy things myself, so actually, I like pretty things. So, in terms of how it looks, how it costs, the touch, the feel of things, quite from an aesthetic level. So you can get sucked into that. So somebody that can keep you on point to make sure that you're making the right decisions for the right reasons. Invite the suppliers out. Obviously, worked through that. Worked with procurement, legal, IT, the change committee, to make sure that we were kind of we're kind of getting the right systems in place, and that's the functionality could mirror the systems that we already had in place. Built the business case out, so a lot of it by this is where we are, this is what it's going to cost, this is where we want to get to. It's quite, I'm not trying to make it sound simple, but it is quite simple. It's the kind of the business case side of it. I think the work comes in leading up to building the business case, building credibility, building the understanding, building what you're wanting to do, and going into meetings, already having them conversations with everybody's in the meeting, that everybody's going to make them decisions, or the key decision makers. You kind of slightly manipulative, I suppose, but it's basically spending that time with them to get them to understand what it is you're trying to achieve. Because something I've found since being in internal recruitment over the kind of the last 8 years is people don't understand recruitment really. I think in all honesty, I think people think that you put an advert out, you speak to a few people, and job's done, and then they struggle to understand why you can't fill vacancies. So when you really capture everything that goes into actually a recruitment process, and actually to finding good people and improving retention, they start to respect it a little bit. And actually, when they kind of go as a PLC, and it's obviously look for a return of investment, I wanted to understand what the key drivers from the CEO and the exec team was as well, in terms of, where is the business going? What is the strategy? What does that look like? And actually, how can I make our function almost like a sales function? So actually, but that's led by the system. So actually, if my team are pretty much, recruitment administrators, how do I turn them into salespeople? So actually are going to generate profit for the actual business. So and that is the kind of the language. So I think everybody's different, everybody's industry and everybody's companies are very, 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 very different. So I think understanding your company, where it's going in the vision of its drivers, life science, medical, utilities, food, and automotive are all different industries in terms of different goals, different objectives. For us, it's obviously it's profit. So be a PLC. So that's what we look for. So understanding that and building it down, and then obviously going out to suppliers, understanding what the suppliers could offer, and then whittling it down to, I think we got down to 2 in the end, iCIMS being one of them. And being biased, I've used iCIMS before. It kind of, I know the system can do exactly what we need. It kind of easy to get. I'm quite lucky actually. Quite easy to get over the line. In the background of that, I had also been doing some work in terms of like proving concept, proving the process, proving we can reduce agency spend, we can move away from agency, we can move away from the reliance on agency, going out straight to market. We can improve a little bit. I mean, it's early days for retention in such a short space of time, but we can show that we're getting the quality through the door. So it's not just about speed. And wrongly, companies focus a lot too much sometimes on time to fill and sacrifice the quality. So for me, it's the quality of hire, the value that they're adding, and actually start to build that credibility, your own brand within the business. And actually, JP saying that we need a new system, actually probably do need a new system, but also lobbying hiring managers that had a lot of gripes, a lot of issues, a lot of challenge with the current system that we've got, getting that feedback, ploughing that back into the kind of the business case, doing a bit of a poll with the company. So a lot of legwork went into the business case, pre-business case, and the ultimate business case was just a couple of slides, but the legwork had been done previous going into that meeting, and it was kind of literally a 5-10 minute meeting in terms of current situation, cost, this is where we need to be, these are the metrics and goals, this is where we'll achieve it by, and that ultimately was it, to be honest.
So what I'm hearing is the key thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is actually that kind of stakeholder, which we will touch on later if we get time, but that getting that stakeholder buy-in early, because these are the people that are going to be touching the system or using the system, or it impacts them. But also getting that buy-in team involved. So your procurement, your legal, get everyone aligned so you've got that buy-in team, because hey, you can't do this all. Am I correct?
Massively, yeah. Because when I've done this before, and I've made mistakes in the past, there's that one department that you want included, and actually they sometimes tend to be the key.
They will bite you.
Yes, they will bite you, and then when you kind of a month out from trying to get live, going live with a new system, you've got some major issues on your hand. You're back to working out of a spreadsheet.
It's normally that's normally IT, but that's a conversation for another day over a beer. Great, yeah. Thank you, JP. I think this is a key one. Like, how did you distinguish between the necessary and the nice to have? Having worked and sold technology for a number of years, there is shiny stuff, but actually it doesn't actually always do what it says on the tin. Okay, so a salesperson will show you something, you've got a solutions consultant now whizzing through a demo, and people don't dig deep enough. So how did you distinguish between this is what we absolutely need and this is just a nice to have that we're not going to use now? Because I'll use another example. Like, I've seen so many organizations buy too much tech, so they don't take a phased approach. They buy it all up front, but they're not ready to, even as an organization, they're not advanced enough, or they're not ready to actually use all the technology. So how did you go through that process?
Yeah, I think, going back out to market this time, I quickly realized, and going back to some of them numbers that you kind of flagged up at the beginning, there's an awful lot of startups, really small kind of startup tech ATS systems out there. And although that's great and it's fantastic, and actually these ATS systems and tech businesses need to start somewhere, for the size of the company that we are, it would be too much of a risk for us to kind of get it wrong. We're doing it once, we want to do it right. Going into an agreement with a business and a partnership, we want an ATS supplier, functionality, we want it to work. So I quickly realized that a lot of these startups, like what you're saying there, that phased approach, they'll give you the tech up front, they'll give you all straight away. And you kind of know from experience that's not going to work. It needs to be a phased approach. And actually, sometimes less is more, tried and tested. And I think for me, looking at ones that adapt with the times, so obviously we went through really tough and hard time through the pandemic. Businesses that keep, or ATS and suppliers that keep changing and evolving with current market trends and the environment. And iCIMS 100% is one of them. And one of the few actually, and the rest, you can kind of see that they've probably not changed the systems for the last 10 to 15, 20 years. Some are just a little bit too maverick and out there. So for me, simplicity is key to add some solid, robust, functionality. So I looked at what we needed for the process to be a success, and then looked at the things that will complement this process and further reduce the admin tasks. So one of the big ones for us is if we stayed with Cornerstone as an example, we would have had to get the same functionality that iCIMS offer. We'd probably had to have about 3 or 4 different systems to create the same functionality, such as like calendar invites and calendar, booking interviews. I mean, this is technology that's probably been around a little bit now, to be honest, with like things like Calendry and stuff like that. But actually, that functionality for us is, when you've got a business at 6,500 employees, 1,700 hiring managers, probably roughly, I would say, their calendars are all over the place, and the volumes that we're kind of recruiting for me, that is the biggest one. We're finding that 30% of the recruiters' days is booking interviews and then cancelling interviews and rescheduling interviews. So for me, although it's been around a little while, we wanted a system that could do that very, very well. Text, chatbot, all that other stuff as well. Great talent pooling, video interviewing. So like I say, so sometimes less can be more, and actually some of the tech that's a little bit too far in front is a bit of a challenge. So I think, in all honesty as well, not neglecting the recruiter as well, but one, when they're kind of knee deep in vacancies and kind of not adding value, they're just doing pretty much an administrative role, the mental well-being suffers. So the really kind of, and I've seen it, I saw it when I first started, I've seen it a couple of times, is they get in the grind. So actually a system that can alleviate them from there and add the real value to the role, job satisfaction and mental well-being, and enabling that. One, the system that can enhance that, and the system that can basically you know, lift them up from there, but then enable them to ultimately be better recruiters. So
absolutely. I think we forget. I think someone's put like in the chat, everyone thinks they can do recruitment.
the car.
They can't. Like, yeah, it's like no, it's actually harder than what people think.
A lot harder, yeah.
A quick poll. So are you looking to purchase any new technology in the next 12 months? I'm going to whiz through this because we're running out of time.
A slightly different question on the poll, but if we go with the question that's actually on the presentation deck, that would be great. Okay.
To trick people to see if they were listening.
Okay, let's share the results with you.
Yeah. I'd love the opportunity to kind of dig into the no, because is it budgets? What is it? Because obviously the market at the moment is a little bit crazy. Sorry. I mean, I think you've explained this already, excuse me, JP, but, you know, securing that stakeholder buy-in is absolutely critical. And I think you've talked a lot about this, but is there anything else that you can add about, you know, making sure, because, you know, these are the people that are, one, might be paying for the system, but two, you're also going to use the system. And like I said at the start, you're not going to want to keep changing the system. You need to make sure that the one that you've got is used. And adoption. I mean, adoption is obviously the absolute key.
Yeah, I think just to build on that, and I kind of already run through that, but yeah, I think for me is setting out that, like I said, to kind of repeat myself, and apologies, it's probably, you know, take your stakeholders on a journey in terms of what's happening. I think we're too focused as businesses and recruiters or heads of functions or whatever roles that you guys might be in, to focus on the here and the now, not the medium, the long-term solution. So we kind of always stay in that reactive state. So I've tried, we've got a lot of things changing within the automotive industry with the introduction of EV vehicles and the move to full EV vehicles in like 2030 and beyond. That's going to, you know, our business is going to change, you know, and actually the market's going to change. But that really alongside of what we're in currently at the minute, where massively candidate driven market, you know, real challenges for all recruiters across all sectors, you know, and I think, you know, taking them on that journey, not just for now, but where we're going, you know. So I don't think there's a you know, a silver bullet for where we are currently. I think, you know, it's going to be choppy water for all recruiters over this next 12 to 18 months, certainly, until it kind of stabilizes. It's definitely challenging everything that I've learned. I'm kind of learning something new every day. But I think taking stakeholders on that journey to understand, like somebody's mentioned in the comments, it's not easy being a recruiter. People think it's easy. People think it's easy. And actually, it's a thankless task a lot of the time. It's you know, the first person to get the blame. You know, when things got wrong, you haven't got somebody put a record through on a Monday and why you've got candidates by a Tuesday. You know, and if somebody comes and they're not what they expected, that's your fault. You know, so it's tough. It's tough, and it's, you know, selling people is probably a lot harder than selling cars. You know, it's people are changeable. People don't want to go do this. They've got family lives. They've got all sorts of different dynamics that basically change from when they probably set out looking for a position in the first place. And they've got an abundance of opportunities out there. There's a lot of competition on this call. You know, so for me, that stakeholder buy-in is taking them on a journey, understanding what your key drivers are for the business. Like I say, PLC, it's about return of investment. If we're going to invest that money, what's that going to mean from a monetary term? Reputation, culture, brand, image. What does it mean? Taking them on that journey. Everybody will be very, very different. A lot of it is, don't neglect the things like cost per hire. I know it's a simple metric, but cost per hire, how much does it cost when there's somebody not sitting in that role and somebody's covering there? What is the mental strain? What is the mental cost on the team while they're covering that person? So there's loads and loads of great, I mean, pretty difficult to do that when you've got a system that doesn't give you a lot of great metrics, but to shape that, to build that, so you're taking them on a full journey end to end, and the destination goal at the end of it, it's a really hard conversation for them to have with you ultimately, to say no, you're not having it. So I think it's just understanding your business, taking them on a full journey, get them to see what you do in a day or on a week, and what's your challenge and what's happening. Because I think a lot of the time is they're blind to see what's out there in the kind of out there in the marketplace, what's happening in the market, should I say.
Cool, that's great. I'm cautious of the time. So we've got like 5 minutes left, and I know there's a couple of questions to ask. So can you just quickly just on kind of what success looks like for you?
Wow.
You've got like 1 minute.
1 minute, right? Okay. So I think well-being of the team first and foremost. That's the thing. So that's a team that's going to stay, that's going to be good, that's going to be energized, going to perform. And because it's the team that's going to deliver the end goal. What we kind of set out as a strategy. We're one team. We want to get to the end of this year and then into next year and kind of keep building. So for me, a team that's motivated, that's happy, that's energized, but then a system that will deliver that for them. So this, everything from a metric point of view: time to fill, quality of hire, retention, reduced agency spend, credibility, more applications, more quality applications coming through. So that's what success. It's hard to put down into one measure, in all honesty, but I think seeing what the team like when I first joined, to where I hope the system will enable them to be probably by the end of this year into early parts of next year, I think that'll be success, because it's them that will drive all the kind of the big kind of big ticket items and the everything that's on his agenda over the next 2 to 3 years. So that's what
and having a system that you can actually report some of the stuff, because you said earlier,
yes, yeah,
which is never great, especially when it's bits like DE&I, which is obviously
absolutely.
a massive thing. Like 57% of people said, D&I is really important and employing diverse candidates. If you haven't got a system that can report on that, you've got a problem. So really, really quick poll, because we are running out of time. What products and tech are people most interested in hearing about more? That was quick, Natasha.
I can be speedy. We are running out of time. So if I can get us moving a little bit. So if you're able to go on to the next question, just whilst we're getting the results back on that, it might work really well.
And I suppose just the next question is just what advice have you got for others? Your lessons learned.
From my perspective, I think it's keep close to your team, keep close to the market, and I think especially with TA leaders, sometimes you can become a bit detached from the marketplace a little bit. So I still recruit, I still love recruiting. It doesn't matter what level I'm recruiting across. So it's listening to your recruiters, because actually they're right on the coal face, they're doing the job. So understanding the challenges, understand what's happening for them. And I think it's just getting out to site is a big one as well, because a lot of recruiters sit in head office, sit at home, they don't get out to sites or out to the locations if you're able to do that, obviously. But I think getting out to site and understanding the hiring manager challenge and kind of educating your recruiters when they're going, oh, my hiring manager is this. Well, actually put yourself into hiring manager's shoes. Actually, what's the challenges that they're facing? Build them relationships. So getting your teams to do that is probably the big, because I think that's the biggest thing where you win hearts and minds over. And then and that kind of educating the business about the market, the recruitment, the challenges, and kind of taking them through that. I think that is the biggest thing, because I think the more knowledge and the more education, the amount of times I've gone out to site where you've got 50 sites and that one site thinks that the whole team just recruits for that one site, and you're like, well, hang on a minute, no, we recruit for 49 other sites here. You do know, oh, I didn't know that, what a job. It's lack of education, because actually they don't know what they don't know. So I think education is key to understanding the challenges, right, what we do. So that'll be it.
Right. There is a question for you up in the chat. So I think it was Mike North, so I don't know if he's still on, but what tools do you use internally to bring all of the locations together to follow the process? And how do you deal with those that still go rogue? Because there will always be those people that still go rogue.
Yeah, so I think we're lucky in Lookers, we've got a really good internal comms team, and we've got a SharePoint, and actually our employees engage with it massively. I mean massive, probably better than anywhere else I've seen. So getting stuff on there, we used to do a thing called Wednesdays at 1, like learning at 1 o'clock, so sharing the system, sharing the process. We haven't got any one system that kind of keeps all those colleagues in one place, but I think it's getting out to site, education again, like speaking to hiring managers, sharing SharePoint, sharing updates on there. Where are you this week? What's your travels? I think that helps to kind of get people on track. You're never going to stop them fully to stop being rogue, in all honesty. So yeah.